So far we have 2 tracks in our session. One of them is receiving MIDI and sending it to the output of the M box. There's nothing connected to it. I would like to take this MIDI track and send it off to make a useful sound, but there's no place to add a sound to the MIDI track. We have to create an aux track and then add a sound-making device, a virtual instrument, to the aux track and then send the MIDI to the aux track. And a few releases ago, Pro Tools came up with a thing called an instrument track. That's what you see here on the left. So thank you, MIDI track, for showing us what you showed us, and I'm going to delete him. An instrument track combines receiving MIDI with sending it to a useful patch, like a virtual instrument. In this case, I have a mini grand up here. It's a very pretty user interface. I can scrub across the keyboard, either using my mouse or input Axiom device. And because this isn't in record enable, it didn't receive, and now it will. Instrument tracks are very handy because they receive MIDI data and then they send it on to do something to a virtual instrument. In the long run, we wind up with fewer tracks. If we had to have a MIDI input for every single instrument, we'd wind up with many, many tracks that kind of get in the way at the end. So instrument tracks are handy. Now, even inside of this mini grand, there are lots of choices we can make. There are lots of different sounds of the piano, bright, soft, and so forth. This is where we would control our velocity response. Do I want it to be very sensitive to my keyboard touch or just sort of round up and ignore my keyboard touch? And then the type of room that it's in, this is a reverb setting, and how wet do you want the piano? And then its output volume. You can also experiment with tuning here. The default is equal, and that's mostly what we want. Now, how did I find this? Well, on the top of an instrument track, go to the first insert, multi-channel plugin. There's a whole list of instruments here. Depending on what you've installed, this could be a longer list or maybe a shorter list. This is what ships with Pro Tools. So I'm going to change my piano to the Xpand plugin. And up pops the default sound. As it says, it's a bright pad. It wasn't lying. So I'm going to change this patch to loops and not so busy shakers. So let's explore this a little bit. I have some controls across the top. What it tells me is that it's an 8 feel. So, right? So it has 8 notes in it instead of just 4. And if it's too much, you can mute 1 or 2 tracks. What does that mean? Well, there are 4 elements really that make up this little shaker. Let's take a listen to it. So I'll start turning things off here. And back on. So the native tempos are a little bit varied here, from 135 down to 91. The volumes are set in this patch so that they think these two work well a little bit louder and these two work well a little bit softer. This guy's just a little right of center. This guy's just a little left of center. These two are dead center. They have a little bit of effects on them. It's the FX2. Nobody's going through pitch shift, but they do have a little ping pong, which is in a delay, a setting that just bounces from one side to the other, from left to right. So let's say that I like this sound. I want to add it to my session. I'm going to close the interface for this, jump back to the edit window. I'm going to change my tempo to 85. I'm going to do a piece that could be at either 85 beats a minute or 170 beats a minute. And I'm going to show you why I chose 85. Let's give myself a bar of count off. Let's create track. Let's create a click track. We'll just leave him down there doing his thing. I want to be sure that my volumes aren't going to blow us out of the water here. This is no longer a piano. Even though I changed the sound up here to a shaker, I did not change the name of the track to a shaker. Let me lower this volume of this click and let's just check it out here. That should be comfortable. Back to the edit I go. I don't have to play chit 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 on my piano. I just have to play one note, and it will do the eighth notes for me. So let's just go ahead and do this. I'll verify that my metronome is on. I'll verify my tempo is good. My count off is on, and let's give it a try. It'll count 4 beats, and then I'm going to play. So I have here a really big note, and I want to be sure that it's on the downbeat. I'll select it, and I'll go to Window and MIDI Event List, and it is on the downbeat. And I want it to be exactly 4 beats long. And its velocity right now is 121. So that's almost to the 127 limit. So I'm going to double click in here and set it for 64, which is about halfway. And let's see what it sounds like. All right, so I think I'm going to set it for 100, which is not quite split the difference. I'm comfortable with that. Close the MIDI event list. I'm going to zoom a little bit to show you that this clip now is longer than the note that contains it. And if I looped this clip, or if I Command D'd it and duplicated it, I would have this empty beat in the middle. So let me undo that. And I always want to be sure that my clip length is the right length for the note that contains it. Well, this would be a lot easier in grid mode, right? We saw grid mode before. That way it will just snap to a bar. The clip that contains the note is the same size as the note. I'm hearing chit 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 chit, and I want chick 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 chick. So I'll show you a little trick that I like. I will Shift Command N, make a new track. This needs to be a stereo instrument track in ticks, and we'll call this Shaker Echo. I will Option drag, hold down the Option key or the Alt key on a PC, bring this region down, turn off input here for a second, and then in grid mode, I'm going to offset this by an 8th note. Zoom in, grab this guy, and move him back an 8th note. And then in the mix window, make sure that my echo isn't drowning out the original shaker. And maybe slightly different panning on these. And let's see what that sounds like. Let's start at the beginning and let's turn click off. We'll just mute the click. And I'm not hearing this because it's muted. I don't see it when it plays, and I don't hear it. There's nothing to play it with. That shows you how you have to be careful. I'm going to Option drag and make a new instance of the virtual instrument over here. Now it should work. Option drag. So it actually let me find the note. Now it's blue. I would like to say I did that on purpose. I'm going to admit that I didn't. It just caught me, but we fixed it. So I'm going to drive this fellow back by a 16th, turn off input, and see what we have. Okay, and so maybe we'll push him back another 16th to the 8th. All right, and that's just too much delay on top of delay, so I liked it the first way. One needs to sort of dominate, and one needs to sort of take a back seat, and let's try this relative volume move. All right, that's an effect worth keeping. Now I think we've got things where we want them, and along the way you saw that Xpand plugin has a lot of choices, and we'll investigate those in the next movie.